Hello, everyone, and welcome to this PublisHer interview series where we're speaking with inspiring and influential women from the book world, publishers, and more. And if you've missed any of our previous episodes, you can find them on the PublisHer platforms online, wherever you check your information. Now, as you may know, PublisHer is a worldwide community of female publishing leaders who are working to address the gender inequalities in the publishing industry, especially at the executive level where the problem is the worst. This series of interviews will travel from region to region, and we're starting right here on the African continent. And I'll be conducting several interviews in this region before I hand over to another interviewer from other parts of the world. My name is Maimouna Jallow, and I'm the director of Positively African, which is an organization that works in the literary and performance space. And I'm super excited because today we have with us Thabiso Mahlape. Now, Thabiso, let me just introduce you for those who don't know. Thabiso started her career in publishing with Jacana Media, but she quickly carved out a space for herself, becoming the first Black woman in South Africa to own a publishing imprint, Blackbird Books, which she started in 2015. And this April, she went independent. And Thabiso was very clear from the start that she wanted to create spaces for Black writers, but also to serve Black readers. So Thabiso, welcome.
Thank you, my darling. How are you?
I'm good. It's great to have you with us.
It's good to see your beautiful face again.
Thank you very much. It's great to see you again. Thabiso, before we get into the nitty-gritty discussion about books and publishing, I know the lockdown in South Africa has been particularly severe. So how are you doing? How are you guys coping?
Look, it's been hard. And like you said, we went independent 1st of April, and we had our lockdown regulation set in just before the end of March. So we went independent with absolutely everything we'd planned halted. We still had our stock sitting with Jacana Media. We really were just like, hey, we're independent, but in the background, really couldn't do anything. We didn't know if we'd have money to publish the front list. It's been really tough, and the shops were closed because they were not deemed essential services. And I think they opened again. We are in July now, so they opened again like end of May, beginning of June, maybe I want to say. And we are selling into stores, but you know what? One of the things that struck me is a column that an opinion piece that Budo, the founder of PublisHer, wrote about how we were going, as publishers, we needed to speak directly to the consumer, and as opposed to going through the bookshops. And that's done fantastic for us. I took that advice, I ran with it, and I was able to pay salaries last month from the sales that we made from the website sales. Previously, the big kind of retailers here didn't want us to have e-commerce on our websites because they thought, we're cannibalizing the market, which I could understand because we've got a very tiny market in South Africa. But it's been really empowering to know that we can talk to our market, our end user directly, sell them to them directly, and really sell to them the books that went selling in trade, which has been, so fascinating for me to say these books reached a point in time where they just went selling in trade. And now we're selling directly and they're flying.
Yeah. So imagine that you're going to stick with this strategy even beyond COVID, right?
Honey, this is where we at. Really, this is where we at. And also it just allows us to also figure out who our reader is. We with the many little campaigns and sort of competitions that we have run online have shown us who our target audience is. Whereas in the beginning, we used to just kind of we think, we know. Now we're certain, we're certain who we're speaking to. We are certain about who we are selling to. And it is still hard because a lot of those people have had their finances impacted by the COVID. They've had salary cuts. People have lost their jobs. But I think just going forward, it's very empowering to know who we're dealing with and who we're talking to and who we're trying to get on board.
Mm-hmm. I've heard you say before, that in South Africa, book distribution is very, still very much geared towards white readers. And in establishing Blackbird Books, what you were trying to do is reach Black readers. From the data that you've collected now over this period, who are your readers?
Readers are primarily Black women aged between 18 and 30. And so there's other markets outside of that, but Black women between 18 and 30 are who has been our market. And the thing about the distribution system in South Africa is that it's very elite, right? And if you know about anything about the apartheid spatial planning, is that Black people live outside of the urban areas. So they come into work, they commute into work, they commute in to get essentials or whatever else that may be. So the barrier that existed, so when a courier comes through, we sending him to areas where I imagine that someone would have had to take about 2-3 taxis to get to the nearest bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
Is why I used to sit in editorial meetings at Jacana Media. Actually, it's very emotional, but I'd sit there and when you feel like the black sheep of the company, because you are the part of the business that's not making enough money to warrant your stay and to warrant your existence. And in the same breath, you are saying, but you are not exhausting the methods that I'm asking and imploring of you to reach the market that I'm trying to publish for. So every single thing about the publishing industry in South Africa right now, at least the formal and mainstream, is made and engineered to serve the elite.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what you've clearly proved through Blackbird Books is that there are many other people who want to read, but you have to give them access. Absolutely. And take the books to them.
Yeah, I think even before Blackbird, Blackbird came because I had done this work that I had done within Jacana Media that warranted that I then have Blackbird Books. And it's so funny that my dad, who reads newspapers religiously, he buys about 3-4 papers a day, and he's a very religious man, and he's very loves routine. And so he started reading now under lockdown because he can't go out anymore. So when I left home the one time and I said, okay, what books must I bring you? And he said, books like that Macintosh one. And the Macintosh book that he referred to was one of the first books I ever published. And it was called My Father, My Monster. And I remember sitting in my car thinking, I have created a genre that even my dad likes. And that was so important for me, that I've created something in South Africa that works for even my father. And that's important, very important to me, because this is a man who's been, excluded from reading and from books his whole life. So his whole reading experience has been kind of tamed to newspapers, as it were, and news bits. And now it's, he has books to read. But he also has books to read because his daughter is a publisher.
And because we're on lockdown, and it's great. I guess one of the silver linings is that people are reading more. They realize the importance of having...
wanting to read.
Yes, yes. You mentioned Macintosh there, one of the first books you published, but you've also published other big names like Redit Klabi and Zoleka Mandela. How does it feel that these people entrusted you with their work?
Look, I think there's something that Reedy wrote in her copy, well, my copy of her book. And she said, in her acknowledgement, she said, this is your book. You are the one that made this book. This is yours. This is your book. It's not mine. It's your book. And I think it was important that I got the how do I call it? The courage and confidence to know that I could do something like that, right? And I think from that, I now know that Black readers, Black writers need a platform where they can go and be told that, you know what, you've got this. You know about this. You can do this. So I think the biggest takeaway from me from that was knowing, was being given the kind of courage, and like I walked away from those experiences knowing that I can. And my knowing that I can means that I can tell Black writers in this continent that you can, and we will together. So that's what I got from it. And it's funny because at that point, because there'll always be talk, right? Like we're a very tiny industry, and I had kind of been labeled the celebrity publisher at that point. But it's also by fiction writers who at that point were kind of feeling threatened by the memoir genre kind of taking rise within Black reading and Black writing in the country. And it's for me now, I mean, I tag celebrities with a kind of a rod, like, can I, do I need to touch you? Must I touch you? Kind of
Yeah.
To have moved from being a celebrity publisher to being a publisher of debut voices it's kind of, that's what I got. I think I needed that moment to put me in a place where I can say, you know what? Yes, celebrities are fun. Yes, we want to know, but what do we do about people that are not, that do not have any form of social currency, but have stories that need to be told?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. One of the things that struck me when I was reading up about you and Blackbird Books is that it's only 5 years old. And so when we talk about the first Black woman to run a publishing imprint in South Africa, it's wonderful. But at the same time, I was left with the feeling like, what, only 5 years? What was happening before?
So what happened before is you had women like Rose Francis, right? Who I can't now for the life of me remember what her publishing house is called. But then she was there. And she was doing this, but she never had, and I think this is where I need to acknowledge my privilege in having been incubated by a big publishing house like Jacana Media. So the ones that tried and the ones that are trying, like it's very small footprint, but they doing it like they started off independently. And in the kind of big, bad, wide world that we operate in, it's just almost never enough, You don't get meetings easily with the retailers. You don't get meetings easily with book reviewers. You just, it's just hard. It's hard work. And I think that, it's maybe it's okay to say the first Black woman, but you must say the first Black woman who did it within the mainstream, because to not say that means we are erasing the work that other people have tried to do, that are trying to do. I've just really, and I need to acknowledge my privilege here is that I was incubated by white business. And that really one of the things that it was both a disadvantage at some point and an advantage, but it helped me compete in this space. So even now when I'm alone, if I call up someone in the business, because the ecosystem is long and it's got many people, but I can call anyone up in the ecosystem and they know exactly who I am and they know exactly how to deal with me and they know to better deal with me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I mean, I think the work you're doing is incredibly important because, when we think of books and people being able to see themselves reflected in books, it's not a small thing. When I look at children's books, when you see a Black hero in a book, that child knows that they can also be a hero in real life. And Absolutely. I just want you to talk a bit about this bigger impact that you hope publishing Black writers will have on Black readers, on Black identity, on Black confidence, and all of that.
So you know what the thing, and when you know when the Black Lives Matter conversation started in the US with George Floyd, and then we kind of and then it went into publishing, right? The hashtag publishing paid me, where white honest writers were really trying to show the disparities in payments between Black and in advances between Black and white and Black writers. And then it filtered down into South Africa. And I just really hate the word diversity being used here in our context, in our country, in our continent. Because diversity kind of feels like a small kind of, we're going to pepper it. You know, you've created this dish and now I just need a little salt and pepper, right? Whereas here in this continent, we are the dish. How dare you call it diversifying? We are this continent. My color, my skin color is this damn continent. So no, we're not diversity. The right words to use, and it starts there, representation. It's real representation of who lives in this continent. And South Africa has really one of the most sophisticated publishing ecosystems in the continent. But because the publishing here is so Eurocentric, right, that the big players here need only go to like a Frankfurt book fair or a London book fair, and they would have done all the work they're going to do. Because granted, like majority of the books they sell, they couldn't sell to anyone in Nigeria or in Nairobi, so they haven't cared, and so they haven't created that system. So if anyone was going to create that system of books being sold intercontinentally, I believe, and this is my belief, I don't have any proof, and maybe people are gonna say you're being silly, you're being idealistic, but I believe that if South African publishers had cared enough, would have an intercontinental distribution of books. The fact that we buy, you can't just buy Chimamanda from Nigeria. You can't buy Chigozie from Nigeria. You're buying Chigozie from the North, right? Which then says that as Africans, when we say, oh, I'm reading African literature and that's all I read, sweetie, you're just paying the white man that's sitting in the North, right? And when I went to, because it's not a very lucrative business, this, well, here, continentally, at the moment, we're going to change it. But when I went to Frankfurt and then I saw all these straight white men, I was like, oh, so there's money in publishing, really? Because they don't go anywhere where there isn't money. So I was like, oh, there's lots of money in publishing. Look at them. It's just not filtering down, because even when we are in Africa and we are consuming African content, it's really for the linings of their pockets. That's what's happening here, right? And I also realized there's like a big conversation of everyone looking for African content. But when you look at the kind of African content they're looking for, it's here in South Africa, we call it Jimmy Comes to Joburg. And it is like the migration of someone from rural areas into urban cities. And so that's what they're looking for. They're looking for people that, stories that say someone came from, Zambia, someone came from Zimbabwe, someone came from Nigeria, and now they're in the UK or in the US. And that's, that's what works. That's what, gets things popping. And I remember when we published Remy Ngamiji's Eternal Audience of One, and we were trying to sell it overseas, that was kind of the barrier that, great writing, but, Seraphine, the protagonist, didn't go to any of those places. Migration that happened was within Africa. It was from Rwanda, then Namibia, then South Africa. But we eventually sold it to Simon & Schuster, the Scout imprint. But you can see that we as Africans need to take charge of what stories are being labeled African literature. And we can only do that by making sure that our real experiences as Africans are being captured properly, authentically, as close to real as possible. And the work that I do, really at the heart of it, is saying that may we never need to hear of your name as an African author only because you did an MFA somewhere, in the States or in the UK, we hear of your name as an African who is in Africa, who's writing in Africa, stories are based in Africa, and you've never had to go anywhere. Can we do that? Can we do that for ourselves? Can we say to the world, well, here, you want African stories? Great, sweetie. Here are African stories without your filtering machine, without your influence. They hear, they raw, take us as we are.
I guess one of the ways to do that is also to ensure that we have readers across the continent, right? There's so many of us. If we were reading our own work, we probably wouldn't need necessarily the readers in the West. But it's very complicated now to transport books, for example, from South Africa to Lagos to Dakar or whatever. What are those big barriers that you face as you think of Blackbird Books and thinking, I want to go Pan-African with this? We need to tell our own stories, but also consume our own stories, not just here in South Africa, but across the continent. How do you do that when, transporting books is so expensive, things like that?
Look, I think we need to be honest about our African leaders and their failures, right? Just getting books from here into Zimbabwe or into Zambia, which is like really in the SADC, where when we sell rights, we try and hold on rights for in the SADC. And you are dealing really with like some of the most exploitative, tax rates that ought to be paid in with incoming, goods and stuff like that. And unless we here continentally can come up with a way to distribute, and the only way I think is to bypass all of that distribution is to co-publish.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I've been working with is I've been working with Deborah, who is Debbie, as I love her, so now she's Debbie. She's in Accra in Ghana, and she has African Stories Bureau, and they really come up with some of the most authentic, real, representative children's stories, right? And also like kind of the missing middle, often publishers tend to publish for the really young children, but not the kind of ones that are tired of pictures and just want a story to follow. So we're talking with her about bringing their work into South Africa by co-publishing. And when you co-publish, then you're bypassing the whole distribution, air travel, taking bags. Hey, are you going to Nigeria next month? Can I hand you some books? That kind of thing. So we have to be invested, and that investment, unfortunately, means that we need a lot more Black publishers, especially here in South Africa. We need a lot more Black publishers visible, practicing, so that they can connect with, for me, as you can imagine, personal networks go only up to so far. So I can call Debbie in Accra, I can call Washuka in Nairobi, but I don't have, it's not like I have people everywhere in the continent. And so what we need is a lot more Black publishers in the world. And someone, what was that blog? But someone wrote a very, very profound blog about how it is Black women in Africa who are pioneering publishing, and then went on to list all of these women. So BB, me, Lola, and all of these people. Yeah. And then in the end had a very, very heartbreaking sentiment about how he imagines that Black women are going to plow this land and they're going to do everything possible to nurture it. And in the end, it's going to be white men who are going to come in and benefit from it. And I remember seeing that, and I remember thinking it's so possible, but I remember also that, and then I just thought, over my dead body, you know.
I know you. I know Zukiswa, Angela, you're not going to let that happen.
No, they would have to kill me first. They'd have to kill me first because, you know what you do with this work, right, darling, is you walk in every morning when you wake up, you take your mental health, right, like your brain, and then you put it on the platter and you say, this is my collateral. This is what I have. Yeah. This is the only thing I can offer right now in return for the world allowing me to make this thing. And every day your mental health takes a knock. And I'm sorry, there is absolutely no European man that is working in here and making money or profiting off of the work that I have done.
Amen to that.
It's not happening. It's not happening. And I think, I believe in it so strongly now because of the network that I know now exists. So before I met Bordeaux, right, I didn't know that there were like women in other places outside of here that cared about what was happening to women. So when I met her and then they took me to Nairobi last year, and I was like, because here, when I'm in South Africa, I'm like this, this wild, bitter Black girl who's always like saying, no, stop it, or don't do that, or you better not do that. But when I went there, and I was like, it's like a whole community, I stood with Debbie from Accra. We stood in like one of the busiest streets in Frankfurt, outside Sephora, because I was buying makeup. And we stood outside that shop, and we promised ourselves the most expensive perfume in that shop. We made a pact about what we wanted to achieve and what we were going to achieve. And that's like kind of the importance of knowing that there are people you can reach out to. There's so many days where I'm feeling out of my depth, but I can just WhatsApp and be like, Debbie, can you take a call? We need to chat. And she's going to give me a pep talk, or I'll give her a pep talk. And I think that's kind of the most, like, part of what the important work that PublisHer is doing is just knowing. Or I can call BB. BB was one of the first. I had like a big scandal with one of my books where like literally everyone was tearing me apart here in South Africa. And BB reached out to me from London. She sent me a message from London and she said, I'm coming into SA in a week. Do you want to do coffee? And I thought, oh my gosh, why does she want to do coffee? And then she just wanted to tell me during that coffee conversation that we've got you. We're here out. Call us. Yeah. WhatsApp us. We're here. We're going to help you. So I think knowing that's for me, the importance of PublisHer is just knowing that you've got people that have got your back. And so I've got those people having my back. There's literally no European man is getting my money. I promise you.
It's great that this community of women are standing together because as you say, whether they're European women or African women, the fact that they're women is already one similarity that allows them to fight for the same types of things, even though in very different contexts.
Yeah.
Thabiso, really interesting, but I want to move us on a bit to this question about the relationship between the writer and the publisher. You've just gone independent. I imagine that means a lot more work. I hope you have a bigger team as well. But still, when a writer sends off their book to a publisher, they're giving their baby away. It feels like that anyway for the writer. And it can often be, a difficult relationship there, waiting expectantly for a phone call back. What has that been like for you, having to kind of take care of these writers when they give you their baby?
I think that's probably been the hardest thing for me, to suddenly move from being a cocooned and kind of coddled and cuddled publisher to now having to do my own business administration and then being a publisher. It's been very hard. And so I'm unable to give, so I can't call you every morning. In the beginning of my publishing career, I would be able to go, like I'd go over to an author's house and would sit on the floor and I'd cry with them because it was so hard to get that story out, but I can't do that anymore. It's not something I can do. I just don't have, I'm already worried about do I have money to pay people at the end of the month? So I don't have that presence of mind, unfortunately. So it's gotten to a point where I feel like if you're being published by Blackbird Books and you know what we stand for and you know who we are, the fact that this publisher isn't able to care about your boyfriend cheating, but it's going to get your book out there, it should be enough. I mean, so if your boyfriend is cheating, I'm sorry, I really am, sweetie. But I just have this one thing that I need to do. And unfortunately for us here, the numbers that we get aren't enough for us to, it's not enough, like in the pie, it's not enough for us to have agents. We just, the authors just can't afford agents yet. So I look forward to a time when we can. I look forward to a time we can, because I do believe that writers and authors deserve that kind of, because it's really heart-wrenching work, and it's like the innermost part of you that you're putting onto paper. I believe that the authors and the writers need that, but it's also very unfair on very small publishers who are really just trying to do the best they can with the little they have, that they now have to care that your cat died. I mean, did you bury them? Great, let's move on. It's tough.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So writers, bear that in mind. It's not that you're being ignored, but people are going through things trying to get your work out there. And that's a note to myself as well. Unfortunately, we have to wrap this up soon, but I do want to ask you another question. One last question, Thabiso. You have a beautiful daughter. Knowing everything that you know about the publishing industry and how it's treated you so far and the kind of inroads you've been able to make, and at the same time that it can be financially very tough, emotionally very tough. If she came up to you and said, Mama, I want to be a publisher just like you, would you encourage her to? What would you say? What would you say to her?
I anticipate that. I anticipate her wanting to be a storyteller in one form or another. I really do. And so I hope that I can amass enough wealth for her to be able to do that. It's really the one thing that keeps me going, is that I want to have enough success and money that allows her to go into any kind of foray or any kind of area that she wanted to go into, because she's got that financial freedom. The thing about being in a country that is so stuck white and black, and that your white counterparts that start businesses can call home and ask for like 500K, and you can't because your dad is a retired cop. And it's just the one thing that I'm hoping to offer her, that should she want to do this, because I want to retire soon, to be honest. I got into this because I loved storytelling and I love writing. So I want to be able to write at some point. So I hope that I've set a foundation financially that is strong enough, because for too long, people in our workspaces have been told, oh, but it's not enough money, but you get paid in passion. I want to get paid in rands, dollars, euros. Give it to me. I hope that I have enough of that for her to be able to kind of catapult into anything that she wanted to do.
Well, I hope so too. And you've put it out in the universe, so I'm sure it will come back to you. Thabiso, it's been such a pleasure speaking to you. I'm sorry that it is so short.
It's been fun.
Thank you.
I'm coming to Nairobi first thing when the world is back to normal. I'm coming to Nairobi because I really want to see Washuka's project with the libraries. I just want to be in there. They've done such fantastic work. But so I'll see you in Nairobi very soon, as soon as the world is healed.
Okay, definitely. We're waiting for you here. And to everybody else who tuned in, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll have more coming for you, so keep tuning in. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.